What is up, successful dropouts? I know there's no intro, there's no music, and I apologize for that. I am currently in Costa Rica, and I mean, if I'm being completely honest, before we left, I had planned to record a couple episodes in advance, but just got so busy with all the preparations, I didn't get around to it. So I packed a mic, and that was about it. My normal editing software is on my desktop computer at home. I don't have it on my laptop, so I'm just recording this from a stock program, and I don't have the regular intro or anything like that with me on this trip. So this is basically just going to be me talking at this point, and I've got some interesting stuff to share with you, some exciting stuff to share. You may have guessed by the title, but there's two parts to this episode. The first one, I want to talk to you about a slight change in the podcast as we move forward. This is officially episode 100. We've produced more than 100 episodes, maybe around 150 or so, but officially numbered episode 100, and so I felt it appropriate to make a change, enter into a new season of the podcast. And the second thing I want to talk about is kind of a new season and a new change in my life that I wanted to share with you guys. I view the Successful Dropout community and all you listeners as, I guess, an extension of my family. And so I like to share things with you, share from my experience. And so first, let's talk about the podcast. It's been basically 2 years now since the launch of Successful Dropout. It started as a podcast. Nobody listened for about 9 months until we got picked up by BuzzFeed, and I'm sure that's where a lot of you found me. We got featured on a lot of other places too after that, and it kind of took off. Now we have thousands of listeners from all over the world. Last I checked, 12 plus countries. It's been absolutely phenomenal. About almost a year ago now, we started the community actually on Facebook, and then a couple months ago launched the new version of the website and the forum. And let me tell you guys, it's just been an amazing journey. I've learned so much. I've grown so much personally, and I've learned so much from the community, from you guys. And it's been incredible to build this family of individuals that are so intent on living the best version of their life despite the status quo, on being self-directed, on questioning societal norms and stepping off the conveyor belt. This is what this community is about. This is what I'm about, and I view this community as an extension of me. And so far, it's been true. It's amazing when you start something that you start to gather people around you that are like-minded. And I can really say that I was talking with Tay, my wife, about this yesterday. I can really say, and I was talking about with my sister today about it too, that this Successful Dropout community, like, it's you guys are all like me, I guess, in a way. Like, I've attracted a lot of people to this community that are like me, that have a little bit of that rebel streak, that aren't afraid to try new things and to question and to be incredibly, resilient in the face of adversity and in their pursuit to build the best version of their life, even if it means stepping outside your comfort zone, doing some scary things like dropping out of school, dropping out of that traditional system. Anyways, it's just been absolutely incredible. But all things must morph and change. Things can't stay the same forever. And one thing I've made a commitment to is not to, to make sure that I stay happy with this, with what I do with this community and this podcast, and to do that, like, I have to be able to change things and to do things differently. I can't keep doing the same thing forever, or I get tired of it. I get bored, and when I get tired and bored of it, I'm not giving my fullest to you guys, and I really want to do that. So. And plus, my plate is getting really full right now. We have a lot of other projects in the works. Successful Dropout is not the only thing I'm building. We have a couple other businesses. I'm in the middle of a large startup right now, and we're kind of in that season of sprinting with that thing. And so the plate is getting very full. And so a couple weeks ago, I reached out to some of the core members at Successful Dropout, and I also sent out a survey that you might have participated in. Actually, we got a great response. A lot of you guys responded, and it really gave me some helpful information. And basically asking, where should the podcast head right now? And also, this is getting to be a lot. The community management, the forum, the Facebook group, answering emails, Facebook messages, producing the podcast. It's a lot for one person to do. And man, I feel so supported and so grateful for you guys, because these, 6 or 7 key members I reached out to, they were just like, what can we do? Outline a list of responsibilities, and we'll volunteer and take those on and help you, because we really believe in this community. It's filling a void that needs to be filled. This thing needs to exist. And I'll tell you guys, it was so humbling to be able to hear that, and so encouraging, because it gets a little lonely, doing this sometimes. And on the days when I don't get into the community very much, or people aren't interacting in the community very much, I'm human. Like, I second guess myself all the time. And so that was just really encouraging to hear. So all that to say, I'm making this out like it's going to be this massive change, but it's really not. One of the questions I asked in the survey was, would you rather have shorter episodes where it's just me talking, kind of sharing about my life and my experiences and stuff, or would you rather have shorter episodes geared towards really specific how-tos, and in 30 minutes or less, talk about one particular subject? For example, how to optimize your website for SEO, and have a guest on and go through step by step, very actionable advice. And that right there was the clear winner. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. Episode 100 marks the end of a season for Successful Dropout for the podcast, where I've had a lot of awesome guests on. We most of them dropouts and now entrepreneurs, where we heard about their stories. There was really no consistent interview flow. It was just a free-flowing conversation, I guess, and we really got to get into the lives and the minds of these individuals. These episodes were longer and frankly, incredible. I've just had a blast so far and just met some really amazing people. And now I would like to, and you guys have spoken, to transition to shorter episodes with, still a loose format, but more about, getting really into specifics on how to do particular things, very actionable steps. And I think this is really appropriate for this community, because there's a lot of things that school doesn't teach you, honestly. Like, there's a lot of things that if you are kind of going through this traditional route that society throws you into, you don't learn. For instance, budgeting or soft skills like, how to have a healthy relationship with a significant other, or, empathy, problem solving, teamwork, these kind of nuanced skills. There's a lot of things that school doesn't teach you. And those are the things that I would like most to dive into in this, I guess, season 2 of Successful Dropout, and really set this podcast up as a place for you guys to learn all the things that school didn't teach you, and maybe learn all the things that aren't readily available to you. I want to make them very available and bring probably a lot of guests on that we've had in the past, but just have them talk about very specific things and how-tos. So that's kind of what we're headed into. Along with that, you'll probably see more of these sort of key core members of the group interacting with you and reaching out and helping lead things. And that's just because I've essentially asked them to, and they've, at the same time volunteered to do that and to help me out with some of the responsibility with the community. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And so you guys will see more and more of them as we continue to grow. It just, there's a lot to do. And honestly, if you're listening to this and you love this community, you love what we're about, and you feel there's a need for it and you want to see it grow, reach out to me. Kylon at successfuldropout.com is my email, or find me at the website or in the forum or the Facebook group. Reach out to me and let me know. There's probably something that you can do. I mean, everything from managing the community, being a moderator and helping facilitate discussions, to actually writing for the website and being a guest blogger. There's a lot of different stuff you can do, so please reach out to me if you want to help, want to volunteer some of your time. And we've built, a bit of a platform here. People pay attention to Successful Dropout and they listen. And if you get involved and lead this thing with me in some capacity, there's an opportunity for you to set yourself up as an authority in this space, or maybe in a particular subject. I mean, Successful Dropout encompasses a wide range of things. It's a unique community because it's not focused on just one kind of skill or career. It's focused on a lot of different things. It's more focused on a mentality, a philosophy. And so if you desire to set yourself up in this community as an expert on, again, we'll use the SEO example, then, reach out to me and we can find a way for you to do that and have you be that go-to person. If anybody in the community is wanting to learn about SEO, how to optimize their website for search engines, you're the person they go to, just as an example. So definitely reach out to me. So yeah, that's where we're headed with that. Long story short, I'm like incredibly excited, guys. I love this community. I have such a passion for it. And even though I don't know a lot of you, like I love you guys. There's just this genuine love that I hope you feel, and I care about you guys and think about you guys, frankly, all the time. So the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of a wild card. I know you've already seen it in the title. So here in Costa Rica, we're down here for a couple different reasons. We have some business down here. We're down here also just relaxing a bit. I mean, honestly, not much. I'm sticking to pretty much my regular work schedule down here, but Costa Rica is a very nice place. First time I've ever been here, and man, it's just, the people are amazing, the beaches are amazing. I'm learning how to surf, so I'm doing some work and then getting out, getting a surf session in a couple times a day, and it's just been phenomenal. But one of the things that I set up, that I decided to do when I came down here was participate in an ayahuasca ceremony. Now, before you this is, it's weird. It's weird to share about this, I guess, but I remember you guys, some of you have listened for a long time, remember back when, I got hacked and lost a few Bitcoin. I shared that. It was right after it happened too. It was like really raw and real, and, it helped me. And actually, that episode blew up. It went viral on Reddit, got hundreds of thousands of views. And, that was a time when I was kind of real and raw in front of the mic. And it's kind of uncomfortable to do. Like, you feel really vulnerable, right? It's not your typical episode where you've got some time to prepare, maybe write out a script. There's no script here. I'm just sharing as it comes. And I really debated on whether or not to share my experience with ayahuasca or not. And I think I'm going to, and so I hope it helps somebody. Again, if you have any questions about anything we talk about, just definitely reach out to me on the website. So for those of you that don't know, ayahuasca is it's a root or a vine in the rainforests down here in South America, Colombia, Peru. It's not just, it's a vine, and it's a hallucinogenic, and it contains a chemical called DMT. And what happens is you make it into a tea. You drink that tea, and it's all part of this ceremony, and you kind of you have this journey, right? And it's not just the root. The root is also mixed with a leaf to be able to activate the DMT. I don't understand the full process. I just know it's quite the process. It takes a lot of practice. This is a very sacred substance that tribes and people down here have been using for thousands of years. Aya means spirit, and huasca means root or vine. So quite literally, it's translated as the spirit vine. And anyway, so you make it into this tea and drink it, and the effects last about 8 hours. And it's a hallucinogenic. And you think of some other ones like LSD or shrooms. I know Tim Ferriss talks a lot about microdosing LSD and stuff like that. But this is different in that it's not something you do for recreation. It's a very sacred, ancient process. And they actually, they don't call it a drug down here at all. They call it a medicine. It really is that. It's a medicine. And so a buddy of mine told me about this several months back, and ever since then I've been interested and did a little bit of research and figured out, this thing is, it's not some obscure thing that nobody does or hears about. Like, actually quite a few people go, make special trips to, South America to participate in these ayahuasca ceremonies. And everybody that's done it, they sometimes they have a positive experience, sometimes they have a negative experience, but they all say it was worth it, and they come away having their lives completely changed. And it was just really intriguing to me. I want to be clear, like, I'm not some like, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I'm very logically inclined, I guess. Things like religion, anything that's not science-based, like, I'm very skeptical of, and I like to ask those hard questions, think and act logically. I'm not really into a lot of the sort of woo-woo, more like, I don't know, ethereal, nuanced things. I like cold, hard facts, data, stuff like that. And I don't really feel like, prior to doing this, I didn't really feel like I needed to search for something, or that I didn't really feel like I needed some sort of spiritual awakening even. But for whatever reason, I was just drawn to it. I think it was much the same feeling as before I went skydiving. Here's this really, awesome experience that you could have that scares you just a little bit, that not a lot of people try to do. And I just feel inclined to go do that. And I feel like if I didn't do it, on my deathbed, I would regret it. And I'm somebody that, I like to try new things. I like to be on the bleeding edge of things. I mean, everything from what we're doing with this podcast, it's a little bit controversial, especially in the beginning when I first started, to like the startup, I'm in the middle of launching a blockchain tech startup. It's brand new technology. Everything is new. I just really like that. I like to go out and explore. And ayahuasca just happened to be one of those things that caught my attention, and it was like, yeah, I really want to do this. So we found a place down here in Costa Rica, a retreat center, basically, and it was day before yesterday, made the journey. It's about a 6-hour journey from where we're staying on the west coast of Costa Rica here, more like southeast of where we're staying in Costa Rica. And we get there late at night, and it's just this really beautiful house nestled in the middle of the mountains and the rainforest here in Costa Rica. Just some really, really beautiful territory around here, and it's a really nice place. It's got a pool and kind of a garden. It's by a river. It's got a greenhouse, all this stuff, and so we arrived there, and I'll take you through the process of what we actually did, and then I'll try to describe some of the realizations. And I guess before I go into that, I'll say, like, I had the most incredible experience with this. Like, people said, like, oh man, my life has changed. Like, when you read testimonials about people that have done ayahuasca, that have taken this medicine, taken this journey, everybody's really positive and just like, and also some people are just like, you know what, it didn't have that much of an effect on me, and I discovered I didn't really need it. But so many other people are just like, it was such a positive experience and it was life changing. And I'm always really skeptical when I hear that, it was life changing. My life will never be the same. It's like, okay, well, really, I mean, I can truthfully say, I feel that now. I don't feel, it feels like a bit of a rebirth, which I felt was, I guess, why I felt like it was appropriate to talk about it on this episode, because it's a new season of Successful Dropout, and also a bit of a transition point for me in my life, not just with ayahuasca and Successful Dropout, but there's a few other things in my life too that are really transitioning, and I feel like I'm entering a new season here. And so for me, it ended up being an incredibly positive experience, so positive that I just want to, I want to share it. So, so what we get there, and it's a little sketch, it's at night, and it's foggy, and we're in the middle of the Costa Rican mountain, rainforest. It's kind of sketchy. Like, we don't know what to expect. And we walk into this place, and this guy comes out, and he just gives me this big hug, and it was like immediately I felt like I was home. Like, this was a good place. Like, this was going to be a positive experience. And so this individual was the shaman, basically. His name was Gano. He's about my age. He lives there with his wife. Both of them kind of seemed, they were about late 20s, I guess. Just like the nicest, most down-to-earth people, you'd ever meet. And the place was just beautiful. This was about 6 p.m. Friday night. And we put our stuff in a room and basically just hung out for a couple hours. We got to know them. They showed us the place. They showed us the room where the ceremony was going to happen. And I say ceremony because, again, this isn't some hallucinogenic drug like an LSD or shrooms that you just go out with your buddies and you do. Like, they treat this, seriously. Like the retreat centers, the shamans that lead you through the experience. Their purpose in life is to lead people through this experience. Like, that is literally all they do. And so it's very, very serious, I guess, and respectful. And so I guess to make a long story short, we got there about 6. It wasn't until about 8:30 that the ceremony started, and this incorporated a lot of different things. First of all, it was just us talking, and it was Gano and his wife, and they're the shaman, just getting to know us, our story, where we were from. They started talking to us about ayahuasca, and really not saying things that would give us any expectations of what it was going to be like, but more giving us tips on how to get the maximum experience. How to experience it to the fullest. And they lit a fire, and we had they had some other things. A lot of this I didn't really understand, and they were kind of explaining it, leading us through it. And again, like I'm a skeptic. Like I'm a very logical, kind of skeptical person, and so a lot of this stuff, like it was really beautiful. Like it was a really beautiful experience. I'm really open to these kinds of things, but I'm constantly questioning. And so one of the things they had us do was take these tobacco leaves, and we said kind of a prayer. It was myself, a buddy, and then there was only one other person, which was kind of special. There's just 3 of us going through this process. Usually it's like 12 to 15, but we kind of got a slot that was kind of a specialty slot. It's because we're down here on weird dates that aren't kind of in line with their usual process. So as they graciously still opened it up to us. And so we go around and we say a prayer. Everybody says a prayer in their own way. For me, I don't really, I guess, pray as much in the traditional sense as I say kind of, I just sort of speak, I speak affirmations, and I speak kind of my vision and what I would like to see happen in my life. And so, I did that, and you say this while you're holding this tobacco, and then you toss it into the fire, and the idea is the smoke is kind of, it's burning it and sending these prayers and these intentions sort of, up to the heavens is how it was described to me. And then you go into the room where the ceremony is going to take place. And, the whole thing is very calm and beautiful and pretty surreal. All the lights are off. They light candles everywhere. There were candles, out in the actual, forest, like on the trees and stuff. And so it just sets up this really beautiful environment. And the room where the ceremony was to take place it's sort of a balcony that's open to the rainforest. And again, you're just nestled in the middle of the rainforest. So all the wildlife, all the sounds are all around you. You're next to a river, so you can hear the river. And we go in there, we do a few other things basically in preparation to drink the ayahuasca. And they have a mat laid out for you essentially, because again, once you drink this tea, the effects last for like 8 hours. Like this is an all-night ordeal. We started at 8, and the process that I'm about to tell you about didn't end until about 10 a.m. the next morning, and you're up all night for this process. And so they have basically a bed made for you, and so after all the preparation is finished, you come up and you drink the tea, and it's only about a shot and a half. And a lot of people say it tastes terrible, and there's a lot of stuff I read about how bad it tasted, but it really wasn't that bad. And it goes down pretty easily. It's just like a thick. It's not very thick even. It's thicker than normal tea, for sure. But it's very dark, almost black, and it tastes like you're drinking a root. Honestly, like imagine just crushing up a root, putting it in some water, and then drinking it. Like that's basically what it's like. You drink that, and then you essentially go and lay down, and the effects don't actually kick in for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, actually. And so you lay down and you're actually going to sleep. And throughout this whole process, throughout the entire night, these shaman are there with you. They're in the room, just kind of watching over you. Their calling in life is pretty much to see people through this journey and this process, over and over again. And they're very good at it. And so setting up the environment, helping you understand how to get the most out of the experience, dispelling any sort of fears and doubts, and just being there to sort of comfort you. is what they do. And they also play music. Throughout the process, our shaman, they played, actual music that they had written with very sort of, primal instruments like basically acoustic guitar, drums, shakers, that sort of thing, and then played similar music on Spotify. Basically the entire night, some chanting and stuff. Basically just noise to keep you grounded in reality and sort of guide the whole process. And it was just beautiful. I mean, these two people were amazing. Husband and wife, they'd been married a couple of years, younger, and their calling in life is basically to like heal people. And like, I've seen some great relationships. A lot of them are my friends and family, like great marriages to look up to. These guys were connected with each other on like a spiritual level I've never seen before. And it was absolutely beautiful. Anyways, drink the tea, lay down, and you fall asleep, and the effects start to kick in after like a couple hours, and then it's essentially you're in for a ride at that point. I mean, it's a hallucinogenic, so you open your eyes and you're seeing things that aren't there. Things are moving, time and space and sound, smell, sight, everything is just kind of folding in on itself. It's you sort of disconnect from reality as you know it. You disconnect from your body. It's all the things that you would normally expect, I guess, from a hallucinogenic. And I've never taken anything like that. Like, I've never done LSD or shrooms or anything like that. And so this was all very, very new to me. It's the first time I've ever had an experience like that. And I'm very, actually, now that I've done it, I'm very grateful that, I've never done any of those things recreationally before. So let's see. And it's not just a hallucinogenic. It's an introspective, substance. Like, it brings things to the front of your mind and expands your both your conscious and your subconscious in ways that you've never experienced before. And it's like it's an inward kind of experience. Like you're being introspective, like, the entire night. It's a real inner journey. It's a selfish journey, basically. Like, you're there for yourself, and the actual like effects like really last really intensely for maybe 3 to 4 hours, and then the rest of the night you can still feel it, but it's mostly like you just thinking about what you've just experienced. And again, this lasts all night, basically in complete darkness, on your bed. So that was basically the process. And so now to the actual experience. And this, it's really weird to describe the experience. It's one of those things, it's very close to one of those things like you had to have just been there. And I feel like I'm going to sound a little crazy, telling somebody this. And I feel like as I say things, like, they're not going to come out the way I want to. And so definitely, like, feel free to suspend judgment to, again, like, I'm not normally this guy. The things that I'm saying and the things I'm about to talk about are not things that I would ever have thought I would, say out loud, I guess, much, let alone on the podcast to thousands of people. But, and I'm still skeptical, I still think about these things, and it's like it didn't introduce me to some new reality that I think I can prove scientifically or that I can know definitively exist. If anything, I just know the mind is a very, very amazing thing, and we only understand such a small percentage of it. And this was a very subjective experience, so there's no way I could prove it to anybody else. Just describe what I felt. But to me, it was beneficial because there has been a clear difference in the way that I think and I approach the world since that experience. And actually, I plan to go back. I still feel, I guess, called in a way to go back, like the work's not finished. And I say work because this is real work. It's not just something, you don't go there to just do this recreationally. You don't go there because you want to do drugs and just trip balls in the middle of the rainforest. It's not like that. You approach it with great care, great intention, and a lot of respect. And it's real work. I mean, it takes energy. It is absolutely exhausting. And it's terrifying at points, and it's blissful at the same time. But afterwards, you have a perspective on yourself and on life in general that I don't think there's any other way that you could gain it. I mean, I've done a lot of things in my life, and this just honestly tops them all. Tops them. It's better than all of them, is what I'm trying to say. And they call this a medicine for a reason. Well, first of all, it literally does clean you out. Like you do what's called purging. Like vomiting, I guess, is a pretty common reaction to this. It gets in there and yeah, literally, cleans your stomach and your body out. That's just kind of the medicinal properties of the root. But there's also it's also kind of a medicine of the mind, and it searches for things to I guess heal. First to expel and to kind of purge from you and to heal. And we're talking physical, but also emotional. Searches for emotional things that need to be purged. So one of the things they tell us going into it is there's a very real possibility you'll probably be purging and throwing up within the first couple hours or so. So they've got bowls by your bed and stuff like that. That didn't happen to me. It happened to the person next to me, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But okay, so. Well, in the other, I'll say a few other things here too. I'm setting you guys up so when I actually talk about the experience, it doesn't seem like I'm freaking, insane. All right, so there's a couple things they tell us going into it, because it is a hallucinogenic, and so with any of that, it takes you away from reality, which has the potential to really, I guess, freak you out. And so they tell you, focus on your breathing. Your breathing and the music that's playing is what's going to anchor you to reality when you feel completely torn from reality. The other thing they say is to smile, physically smile, and approach this with a very positive attitude, and then also approach it with intention. And they ask us, what's your intention? And mine was, again, I didn't feel like I was going there to search for anything. I'm not this guy that is just there's this void in my life that I need filled. It's all the voids are filled. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm very, very purposeful and intentional about the things I do in life and my mission and my values. I've got a lot of that figured out, and so I don't feel depressed or I'm searching for something. And so I went there, and I was basically my intention is just to be open. It's to be a blank slate and to kind of throw myself into this, and whatever happens, happens. And so these were all the things I was focusing on. I was focusing on, my intention was also to be, I guess, grateful. So I was focusing on my breathing. I was focusing on, smiling and approaching it with a positive attitude. And I was focusing on my mantra, I guess you could say. I do own a yoga studio, was I am open and I'm grateful. And throughout the course of the night, I probably said that, in my head and out loud, a couple thousand times. I'm open, I'm grateful. I'm open, I'm grateful. And then the other part is people that have experienced ayahuasca describe it as mother ayahuasca or grandmother ayahuasca. And it seems weird, going into it, why would you call this a mother or anything like that? But again, you won't know till you experience it, but it has a very feminine quality about it. you really do feel like you're connecting with this sort of ancient and primal being, almost, except it's not like you can't make out like an actual being or person or anything like that, but it feels very feminine and like a good mom or a good grandmother. Sometimes they of course love on you and want the best for you and show you that, but also there's that tough love. They can do things for you and to you that you don't necessarily enjoy, but that you need. And it's very much like that. So if I say things like she or anything like that as I'm describing the experience, is because that's really what it felt like. So I drink the tea, I fall asleep, and then you wake up, like the experience starts to wake you up. And the first thing that happens is like I imagine it would be if you're like on LSD or shrooms, like you start to just see shapes and colors and just wild things, and you're hallucinating, and that's when it's kicking in. The next thing that happens is you can feel the medicine like in your stomach, and your stomach is empty pretty much. There's kind of a diet that you do leading up to this. Like you don't eat a lot, you don't drink a lot of water, you stay away from tobacco, alcohol and stuff for weeks prior. There's a diet in preparation for this, and so you can feel the tea, I guess, the medicine in your stomach and like in your body. And you feel it searching. You can feel it searching for things to purge, and so it goes down in your gut, and it messes that, and that feels unpleasant for a while, and it goes down your legs and into your feet, and then comes back up into your chest and your throat and your head, and you start to feel nauseous. And I remember feeling like it's like she's searching. She's searching for things in me to purge, to get rid of, to heal. And I remember at this point you're pretty much separated from reality. Like you understand where you are, that you're laying down. You understand, like, you can check in with your body and stuff, but it's one of those experiences where, yeah, like your body's okay, you understand you're in a safe place, you trust your surroundings, and then you can kind of go back into your head and disconnect from reality. And so I could feel her searching, and I was searching for things to purge, negative things, and I could, I was like offering things up. I was thinking about things that I've done in my past that I don't, I'm not proud of, or that I regret. Actually, there's very few things that I regret, but there's a few I can think of, I guess. But just negative things that I know I have in me, doubts, stuff like that. And I was offering them up, like, what about this? What about that? Do you want to get rid of this? Get rid of that? Does this need healing? And she passed by, all of them. And I didn't purge. Like I didn't throw up. A lot of people that take ayahuasca, they have, like, the first several hours, they're like tormented, they're screaming, they're like, you can go watch some YouTube videos and stuff. This is why I was a little terrified leading up to it. I watched like half of a documentary, and it'll literally show people just like writhing on the ground, like screaming like they're fighting demons, and they'll be doing that for a couple hours, and then they're laughing, and they're completely just filled with bliss and stuff. And I realize now that screaming and stuff, it's the purge. It's dealing with all the crap that you carry, whether it's physical, like literal physical, or emotional baggage. And she kind of searches for that and gets rid of that. Anyways, it didn't find anything. And I remember thinking, like, well, why? And it was kind of explained to me, well, all of the negative things, all these things that you've offered up, things that you're not proud of, in your life, these are all things that you've taken and you've learned from them. You've learned from these mistakes, from these bad decisions, from these things you regret. You've incorporated them into your life, and it served to just make you a better person. You've learned from them. You've found the positive in them, and because of that, they need to stay. They're not worth purging. They're not worth getting out of your system, I guess. And that just made a lot of sense to me, in the moment. And so I didn't purge. The guy right next to me, I'd never met before, really cool guy out of California. Definitely, like, he was throwing up. He was groaning, like he was struggling with some crazy demons. And this is a really nice individual. I liked him a lot, but you could tell, like, going into it, like, this guy's got some stuff that he's working through. So he was having that experience, and meanwhile, she just wasn't finding really anything to purge with me. So the next thing that happened is I just remember feeling like this is going to be a really incredible experience, and it really was. So the effects from there just get more and more intense. You start to really become disconnected from reality, and really, like I said before, like, again, there's music playing, you can hear it, but like the sounds, they don't sound like normal sounds. Excuse me. All these, time and space is folding in on itself. You're being torn away from your body and being launched into this, into the ether, and it can be absolutely terrifying. But again, while this was happening, like, I was remembering, okay, breathe, like, this is my tether back to reality, my breath. And I'd be like, okay, take a deep breath, and I'd be like, but I wouldn't feel the breath. It was like Kylon was away from my body. I was out. I'm stretching out my hand, like I was out here, and I was looking at my body, and I would tell my body, breathe. And I wouldn't, I would see my body breathe. I would hear it breathe, but I wouldn't feel it because, like, I wasn't there anymore. But it would still kind of tether me back to reality. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm on Earth. I'm in this room. Like, I took this medicine. I'm having this experience. Everything's okay. And yeah, so I would come back to reality, and I would. So the other things I was saying, and I wasn't just focusing on my breathing, but like I said, it was repeating over and over again. Like, I am open, I am grateful, I kind of relinquish control. I'm giving myself over to this, and I'm approaching this. I would smile. I'm approaching this with a very positive attitude, and that just helped so much, because you quickly realize, like, how fast you can slip into just a very, very terrifying experience. Like, you're hallucinating. I mean, I remember the Gano, the shaman, like, he was walking around kind of playing music, checking in on people, basically serving us, but he had this poncho on, and he looked like a Dementor, and I'd see, like, this demon face that would flash at me when I would look at him, and at first glance, it's absolutely terrifying. Logically, like, this isn't real, but still, it's this overwhelming feeling of terror and stuff. But despite that, it's like you have to have the strength to still, I have the strength to still say, I'm open, I'm grateful, and I'm smiling kind of through this. And it was amazing how quickly it could turn it back around into, again, a really positive experience. I'm pausing a lot because it's trying to figure out what I should share and what I should not. And again, so much happened, and I realized so much, it's hard to know where to begin to turn this into, like, a coherent story and experience that you guys can understand. I guess a good place to keep going is that the theme of this, I really didn't say anything the whole night. In fact, the whole night I barely moved from when we took it at, about 10 p.m. or so till 4 in the morning. I didn't move, barely moved a muscle, and I didn't say anything. And when I did say something out loud, the first words that came to mind that I said, I kind of whispered, was infinite capability. Because the entire experience sort of boiled down to me realizing the kind of like infinite capability, the infinite potential that I have inside of me, to accomplish anything. And throughout the entire experience, I felt very in control. And, it's weird to say because I was so focused on giving up control and being open to the experience, but it was almost like because I had the strength to give up control and to kind of slip into something that was the unknown and very terrifying, I also had control. And it was like she was showing me that. And I would sort of go, I would release and let myself go out, be torn away from reality, and then I would come back, and then I would release, and then I would, focus on my breathing and this tether back to reality and bring myself back, and this sort of ebb and flow, and it happens in cycle, just this, in cycles, this utter chaos of being torn away from reality, and then coming back to it, realizing like everything is okay, and then what happens, and this happens, a few different times. Going into it, they told us things are going to be kind of brought to the front of your mind, to your attention, and you're going to want to make note of those. And it was very true. You would go into these moments of utter chaos, and then it would start to dissipate and to all fall away. And what was left were these little gems, these visions, these thoughts, these understandings. And that's what you would sit there. You'd just be really introspective, and you'd think about and analyze and ask for, what does this mean for, I don't know if it was, several minutes or several hours. Like you kind of, there's no clock. You don't have your phone or anything. You pretty much lose track of time. And there were several different things that really stood out to me that was like, I got to make a note of that. And like, they're tools that I've brought back with me from that experience that I'll never forget, that'll kind of fundamentally change the way I approach the world. And I'll just talk about a couple of them. The biggest one was, she showed me a vision. It was a vision of a warrior standing in a battlefield, and all these arrows and objects were flying at him, assaulting him, and at his feet was this brand new, strong, perfectly good shield, but he wasn't using it. It was just laying there at his feet. And it was a strange image, and I couldn't get it out of my head, and so I explored it more, and, she told me, you are that man, and this is your shield. Why aren't you using it? And I remember saying, I don't know. I have no idea. And she was like, use it. And, that's the vision. That's what I remember. And then you think about that more, and it becomes more and more clear. And even as I talk about it now, it becomes more and more clear. But, what it was is... the arrows, these things assaulting me are the everyday inputs in life. It's doubt. It's comparing yourself to others. It's the media, social media, all these inputs you get in life that, and especially negative inputs that have the potential to break you down. Make you feel less than, make you feel, scared or inadequate or out of control. These things that detract from your fullest potential. And what became clear to me is that I have this shield that I need to use against those things. And it was like, what she was telling me was that she was giving me this shield to be able to protect myself from these things moving forward. And again, this whole experience was me realizing how capable I am as a human being, that I have a fragment of divinity in me. I have this infinite potential that allows me to control and manipulate my corner, my little piece of the universe, and that basically everything is within my grasp, and that it all starts with the mind. And this is not an unfamiliar concept to us. Like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, your mind is such a powerful thing. The thoughts, the things you think, the words you say, the way that you view, the lens with which you view the world through, it all stems from the mind. And that's why it's so important to watch what goes in your mind and to watch like what comes out of it. But along with that is your subconscious, like these thoughts and things you're not aware of. And that's what this medicine does, is it sort of brings all that to the forefront. And so the major theme across this entire experience was helping me realize how much potential I have. And I realized it and was grateful for it to an extent that I have never experienced in my life. And honestly, like, I was the happiest and most blissful I ever remember myself feeling. And it was kind of because of that. It was because, one, I felt gratefulness to a level I've never experienced before. I felt so incredibly grateful for life, for this world, for the relationships in my life. I thought about, Successful Dropout, some of my other businesses, and how grateful I was. And I even thought about the bad experiences I've had and how grateful I was for those and what those did to me. And this vision of the warrior with the shield laying at his feet and he's just not using it, it was like that, that was me. And I'm this powerful warrior in life, and there's these things that are assaulting me, and I'm just letting them hit me. And it was like, you have this shield, like, pick it up and shield yourselves from these things and preserve this experience, preserve this realization you're having right now. And that was the biggest realization for me. And saying all this stuff, like, I realize, especially if like you just jumped into the middle of this podcast or something, it probably sounds like I'm crazy. Like, again, I was very hesitant to share any of this stuff, but I feel good about it. If people don't want to listen, so be it. It hasn't stopped me before. And again, it's so subjective. Like, nobody, like, for instance, our Gano and his wife there, like, they'd been doing this for like 8 years, and so they have done taken the medicine hundreds of times, and it's different every single time, and it's different for each person. Every experience is different. Sometimes it's not pleasant either. Sometimes the entire thing is just terrible from start to finish, but it's what you need. So I guess you don't necessarily always get what you want. You get what you need. And going into it, I really wanted a positive experience, and it just so happened that what I wanted and what I needed happened to align. But it makes sense. Going into it, I was pretty vulnerable with them and sharing, like, I know myself. I have a tendency, because I'm so logical, I have a tendency to overthink things, to overanalyze things. I get into my head all the time, and even though I know I'm like on the right path, I'm taking the right actions, I'm headed in the right direction, I second guess myself all the time because I let these thoughts in and I overanalyze, and it ends up like breaking me down and hindering me. And at the same time, it's a strength. I'm very detail oriented and organized, and I think I can think through worst case scenarios and prepare for them, so I make less mistakes than I feel like the average person does sometimes. And so it's a strength at the same time. But anyways, so it made sense that this vision would come to mind about this shield, and like I need to protect this newfound realization of my potential from not just other input from the world, but like my own thoughts, And the other thing that came to me is going to sound really weird, but was the word autobiography. And again, another theme of this was the mind. This is this medicine puts you in a mind altering state, right? And it's sort of this constant struggle to like deal with a reality you've never experienced before, and then the reality that you're in. So much is focused on the mind, and I was realizing how powerful and how much potential my mind has. And I kept seeing the word, autobiography, and she was telling me, you need to read more autobiographies. You need to get into the minds of individuals that have accomplished great things and learn how they think, and experience that from reading their accounting of their life. And I also realized I tend to avoid autobiographies. I've definitely read several or listened to several as well, but I avoid them more than most, I guess, types of books, because like there's a fear there. Like when you read an autobiography of somebody that accomplished something great, I'm constantly comparing myself to them and how they think, and again, the way my mind works, that can quickly turn negative, and I can start to think thoughts like, man, I don't know if I can ever do what they did or think the way they're thinking. Do I really stack up to them? Do I really have what it takes? And it can make me pretty quickly feel inferior and like I'm not doing enough in life. So there's a lot of times I've avoided reading those types of books, and it was very clear, like, no, you need to dive into that. You need to do this and enter into the minds of these people that have realized the full potential of their mind and and their ability to control their piece of the universe and build and do incredible things. And so that was the second thing that was just very clear. And so again, all of this, it's happening in the middle of these hallucinations and this chaos, and like trying to deal with some really terrifying like feelings and images and stay positive, feeling very grateful at points, and then all this chaos would sort of dissipate, and these realizations would come forth, and then it just brings it around to the front of your mind, and then you're thinking about it for what seemed like hours, and just asking questions and getting answers, and it's just an absolutely phenomenal experience. So again, the effects kind of start to wear off after 4 or 5 hours, and you're then in this state of it's like a mixture of relaxation and bliss and gratefulness. It's the happiest I've ever felt, and you're grateful to a level you'd never experienced before. And that lasts, well into, after sunrise and stuff. And then one of the last things we do is kind of debrief with everybody. You share about your experience, and the act of talking through it like I'm doing now and trying to share it with somebody helps you learn more from it, I guess. I think probably the coolest part about it, though, which is going to seem, it actually wasn't like the realizations about myself. It was this feeling of being connected to something very primal and ancient, and like connected to the universe in a way, to the earth and to the rainforest. And I know it sounds cheesy and weird, like that's what you say. Like leading up to it, I was super sarcastic a lot, and just like, oh, I'm gonna go get spiritually awakened. I'm gonna go connect to the universe and all this stuff that maybe your friends who've done shrooms and stuff joke about. But man, it was, and I love nature. I love to spend time in nature and do a lot of backpacking and hiking and stuff. It was so real. This feeling of connecting with the earth and the universe, and this feeling like you're a part of something much, much greater than yourself, something very powerful, and it really puts things in perspective. I read another recounting of someone else's experience, and they described it very well. I thought this analogy was very good because it's what I felt, is that, life can be like you're sitting in a theater watching a movie. And, if you've ever watched a great movie, it really sucks you in. If you've ever watched a great TV show, it really sucks you in, and you feel a part of the story. You feel, maybe you identify with one of the characters and the drama that happens. Maybe somebody's in trouble or somebody is successful. Your emotions kind of rise and fall with that, and pretty soon you can get so attached to the story, like you feel like you're in it, and all these things are happening to you. And that's kind of what life is like. You're in life. You're in this great story that's unfolding. That's your life and the world around you. And the problems and the challenges you face are directly affecting you. And if it's a big enough problem or challenge, like you can feel like it's the end of the world, and very overwhelmed. And what ayahuasca does is it sort of gently taps you on the shoulder and makes you realize, no, you're sitting in the theater watching this movie that is life, and you're sort of disconnected from all these things. These problems aren't happening to you; they're relative to you, basically, and it puts all of life into perspective, a perspective that you've never experienced before. And I just thought that was a really great analogy, because that's what I feel like now. It's like after being kind of disconnected from your body and stuff, you realize that your I guess you could call it your soul, like your essence, who you are, your potential and stuff is like, it's so powerful. It's beyond words. And it's much more powerful, and it's beyond your physical body and the world around you and the immediate problems you have. Like, there's such a greater perspective to approach reality from. I kind of described it to my sister this way. I grew up Christian. I would still say I'm Christian in some important aspects. And you grow up believing that there's a God out there, and He's all knowing and all powerful. And growing up, you kind of imagine what it's like to be God, and to know that you have complete control over the universe, and kind of the buck stops with you, and He's got this amazing and complete perspective on all of life, all of the world, all of the universe, and all life in it. And this experience, it was like tapping in to that. It was like tapping into that perspective for a bit, and actually like taking a piece of that with you. Like, I feel like I still have that perspective. I still have a piece of that. It's like I walked away with a new set of tools and a new perspective, with which to approach the world from and to work with. And so, that's kind of another way to put it, I guess. Yeah, anyways, that's, I think I'll start to wrap it up from there. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that happened that I thought about that I realized, like, you feel an immense, I was thinking about my wife a lot, some of my really good friends, and you just have an immense like gratefulness and for them and for those relationships at that time. And walking away from that experience, I feel like opened up more to the world. Like, again, this mantra that I kept saying over and over again that night to sort of keep me from having like a bad experience and like keep me positive was, I'm open, I'm grateful. But it's like, I truly learned how to be even more open to than I ever thought I could, and more grateful than I ever thought I could. And it's crossed over from that experience into reality now, and so I feel more joyful. I feel like I can experience more joy. I can separate myself from kind of the immediately like problems and issues that are happening to me, and it's just an amazing feeling. So I think I'll stop talking now, because it's probably, if you're still listening, I'm sure it's maybe you still think I'm crazy. And again, it's not like, I'm walking away from this still pretty skeptical. Like, I question it. I fully understand this is a very subjective experience, and trying to explain it to somebody is like, I don't know what a good analogy is, but it's like you can't know unless you do it. And I'm not walking away from this thinking that like I am God, or any part of me is God, or like anything crazy like that. It's just I had a very personal, like, subjective experience, like, with my mind, and this medicine helped me get there, and it actually made a really positive change in the way I think. And so that's all I know, and that's enough, for me to know that it was a worthwhile and good experience. But trust me, I'm not gonna get all weird on you guys. Not that it's weird, but weird on you guys from what I've been before, and just become this sort of spiritual guru or anything like that. It's definitely not like that. It's just it was an amazing experience. And I said before, I've never done anything like this recreationally, and to be honest, before this I was kind of open to it recreationally. Like, it was like, well, if I have the opportunity, like, I'll definitely consider it. I'm not completely turned off to it, but now I think, if anything, this is just I have no desire to do anything like this recreationally, because it would feel like a step backwards. You approach ayahuasca with so much purpose and intent. It's real work, and it's meaningful. It's such a meaningful experience, and I don't think I would ever want to take a step back from that. Again, everything I do in life, I try not to do it just 'cause, I try to do it with real purpose and real intention, even if it's something kind of crazy and woo-wooey like ayahuasca. And that's what happened, and it was just an incredible experience. So, I guess the reason I'm sharing this to you, with you, can't speak. I'm getting a little tired here. It's been a day. I guess the reason I'm sharing this with you is, well, because I've shared every other like real like life-changing experience, like my journey, like all the ups and downs of my journey from, dropping out almost a decade ago to where I am now with you guys. And so it would feel kind of inappropriate or wrong, I guess, not to feel something that I felt like impacted me so much like this did. Again, I believe in kind of being an open book. I don't have anything to hide. I believe in being real and open and honest with people, and especially with you guys, and just kind of putting myself out there. And if you can learn from my experience, and if it helps you in some way, then so much to better. And honestly, I'd love to hear about it. And if you do have questions about ayahuasca and stuff, that I'm happy to answer. I would highly recommend the place that I went to. They're just the nicest people, and they did such a great job kind of preparing you for it, and being incredibly intentional and setting it up in an environment that you could trust, so you could get the most from the experience. That makes all the difference. Like, guys, if you would have taken this like with your friends in the forest or by yourself or something, like, that is just a terrible idea. I can't even imagine how terrifying of an experience that would have been. Like, I feel really sorry for whoever discovered ayahuasca, like some Amazonian tribesman a few thousand years ago. Like, I feel really bad for him, because it would have been a terrible experience. Like, you really need to do this in the right setting, in the right place. So definitely reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you more about it. Hope nobody thinks less of me, or that I'm kind of putting myself out there again. But just being real and honest, and then also incredibly excited for this new season of Successful Dropout, and where the community is going to go, and how it's going to grow. Again, very grateful for all of you. I just think this community is it's a very special thing in the world, and I'm grateful you're a part of it. I'm grateful that you're listening. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and I'll say, stay hungry, stay foolish.